This is a special presentation from Brighton High School.
And thank you to all the counselors for putting this night together. I believe this is maybe our second time ever doing a junior parent night in the spring. Is that correct?
Yep.
And the reason we're having this night is because of you, as our families, parents who've had kids go through the district and go through their junior year and senior year and go off to college in the past. This was a big ask from our community members and our counselors. As usual, listened to that feedback and created the presentation for tonight, which would normally have been given in the fall. And it makes so much more sense to do it now. And I do just want to say thank you to all of the counselors who are on the Zoom tonight who put this together and are offering this information for you. It has certainly been quite a year that we've had. I know there were some questions that were posted to the counselors ahead of time, and I'll try to take a stab at a couple of those. But I just want to thank all of you for hanging in there. We're here tonight. Your kids will be seniors. It's certainly going to be, I'm promising that it's going to be a better year than they had in terms of their junior year regarding their schooling, their friends and activities and all those things. And we're really hoping in September, our goal is to be back 5 days a week, most likely masked, starting in September, and full schedule, meeting every day. And, the lunch options, we'll have to see where the data sends us to how we will operate eating in school. But as far as classes go, we are planning on 5 days a week, most likely with masks. And that could go through at least half the school year or more. With band and choir going according to the guidelines at that time, along with sports. Between now and the end of the year, that a survey just came out on Monday, and certainly for this last quarter, I don't see if we're allowed to come back 5 days a week, based on what I've been told. That probably wouldn't start for us until at least April 19th, which is the start of the fourth quarter. And, please, if you haven't taken the survey, take the survey, submit your information on whether you would choose to have the 5-day option if your child is remote or hybrid, or if you would want your child to go fully remote. There is no hybrid option because if the state allows the districts in the Finger Lakes to open 5 days a week safely, according to whatever new guidelines that the state puts out, and schools can abide by it. That is the plan of the Board of Education and Dr. McGowan to open all Brighton schools 5 days a week, following whatever those guidelines are. So you have a choice 5 days a week to come back, or you would go fully remote for the rest of the year. If you're a parent of a remote student, I had a meeting earlier this afternoon. We had a few parents show up, but I shared most likely if you're in a situation where you're remote because of maybe there's particular health considerations for your children, or maybe for you or close family members who live with you and you need to be remote until more people are vaccinated, until the viral cases are pretty much in the single digits or just the double digits again, depending on where you are. We will offer some sort of remote option next year. Just don't know what that's going to look like yet. And the last thing I guess I'll share is this year was the first time we ever did course selection one-on-one with the student meeting with their counselor. And for obvious reasons with the pandemic, many of our kids are not, they're in school only every other day, or they're fully remote. So to have seminars where we would typically go through course selections and all of the things we normally do in a seminar situation, every counselor set up an appointment with all of their students. Each counselor has about 250 to 280 students on their caseload, and taking the seniors out, of course, who don't need to have the meetings, they met with every single student on their caseload for 20, 25 minutes, and maybe sometimes they set up a second meeting to continue conversations about course selection and career options, colleges, work-based learning, all sorts of other opportunities. And by all accounts, our counselors and our students really appreciated this one-on-one visit, which doesn't always happen. And I think everybody enjoyed it so much that, that's one positive thing, I guess, from this pandemic, that we will probably continue into next year. Seminars won't go away, but in terms of the course selection process, we'll probably make those one-on-one meetings again. So without further ado, I see 184 people on the Zoom. That's fantastic. I'm going to turn it over, I believe, to Jenny Vigiani, the Director of Counseling. And just thank you all. I cannot wait to see you. We are going to have a junior prom on June 18th, I believe, and it'll be great. And we're looking forward to hopefully somewhat of a more normal senior year for the class of 2022.
Thank you, Dr. Hall, and we really do appreciate you joining us tonight. And we could not do the work that we do without you and the team of administrators. So hats off to you and your leadership and all of the folks that are in the main office that support us every day. So I'm so glad to see so many familiar faces. This is a fun night for me because I have a junior too. So I recognize a lot of faces. So welcome to 11th grade parent night. We're so happy you could join us. My name is Jenny Vigiani. I'm one of the counselors here. We have the whole crew here tonight, so it's awesome. We've got Julie Bianchi, who is our social worker for the AIM program, counselors Kevin Donahue, Carrie Crowley, Travis Figueroa, Holly Giuliano, and our college and career counselor, Courtney Stern. This is about 90 years of counseling experience collectively in front of you tonight. So you are in good hands. So you'll be hearing from us throughout the night, each one of us, and we have a lot to cover. So be patient, bear with us. We will allow you to all unmute your screens at the end of the presentation for questions and answered. But we do ask that you keep yourself muted while we are presenting for obvious reasons. So thank you to those of you who wrote questions in ahead of time. We hope your questions are covered in tonight's presentation. We took a look at those questions. We made sure that they were embedded in the presentation already. And for those questions that come up during the presentation, we ask that you hold them till the end, and we will definitely have time for Q&A. Additionally, if you want to learn more about the impact of COVID on the SAT and ACT for the class of 2022, I know there's a lot of questions about that. I have a lot of questions myself for my own child. We are going to host Mike Burgeon, who is the owner of Chariot Learning, and myself. We're going to host March 25th from 6:30 to 7:30, an evening where we will present. He will actually present, and we will be able to also have some time for questions and answers. So a Zoom link and an email will come out within the next couple of days. So if you can join us and you're curious and you have lots of questions specific, that night will be available. So like I said, as a parent of a junior myself here at Brighton High School, I can fully understand the stress that this post-secondary planning process coupled with the challenges of COVID is having on everyone involved. I mean, it's an already stressful time, and then we pile on COVID and remote learning and hybrid learning and now possibly another shift. So we want you to know that we empathize with you and we are here for you. So regardless of where you are in this process tonight, we want you to feel like that you can reach out to us at any time, but our best hope is that you can take a step forward after tonight's presentation. What you'll hear from us what you will hear from us is that we want to help your student and we want to help you. So that means sending an email to us, a quick phone call, signing up through our Calendly account, which we absolutely love. We hope that you are able to take advantage of scheduling meetings that work in your schedule by viewing our schedule and plugging in a time. You can find those Calendly accounts on our Brighton High School counseling page at the bottom of our emails and our signature lines. And of course, we can send it along to you if you need it. Additionally, Courtney Stern, our college and career counselor, this is her, I believe, second year in full swing doing this position. And it's just amazing how unbelievably supportive and available she is to students. And we're so thrilled that she's a part of our department and able to do this work. She does hold office hours specific to juniors. So when your student says, I don't know how to get into NAVIANCE, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do, Courtney is in the Career Center Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 3. So she will be there. It's drop in, come in when they're available. It can be flex, it can be a free period. If it's just a quick question in between classes, she's there to support your students. So that's no matter where they are in the post-secondary process. If they're undecided, if they're searching for the right college, if they want to take a gap year, if they have questions about NAVIANCE, the military, narrowing the field, please send them our way. Furthermore, feel free to schedule a parent-student meeting, like I said, using our Calendly accounts found on our website. And speaking of our website, we do find that many of your students, when we met with them, didn't even know that there was a website specific to the counseling department. So we encourage you to check that out. There's a ton of information, a lot of questions that you may ask your student, and they say, I don't know, that you may be able to find it right there on our website. But again, don't hesitate to call, to email, reach out in any way that makes sense for you. Tonight's presentation is being recorded, and we will upload our presentation sometime tomorrow or later this week. So if there's something that you feel like you missed, if there's something that you want to revisit with your child who couldn't attend tonight, or just send it along to someone who wasn't able to be there, feel free to direct them our way. So without further ado, I am going to pass it on to our colleague and expert, Mr. Figueroa, but I think this is a great time for everyone. I don't even know how many people are on right now, but everyone to just take a deep breath, exhale, and know that this is, if this is the first time you're hearing this information, it's okay. We are going to help you every step of the way. So we're glad you're here. We're so happy to be a part of your child's life. They are a gift to us, and we're thrilled that we could be in this together. Enjoy our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. So, as it's already been mentioned a couple of times, this is going to be a lot of information, and we're going to try to go through it as smoothly as possible. However, we understand it's a lot of information, so please don't feel that anything you're hearing tonight has to just be a one and done. Reach out, use those office hours, or set up something and we can go into much more detail. So the first thing we're going to start with is the general, just overall transcript review. This is something that each counselor, when we met with your student, really kind of reviewed quickly, and it's something that should be kind of memorized at this point, but it is something we always like to double check. So the first and foremost, no matter where you're going, college, career, gap year, or anything in between, we have to make sure that your son or daughter is on the path to graduate, meaning that they have to have at least 22 credits by next year, the end of next year. Are they going to meet all of the core course requirements, which is, so many, 3 courses in math, 3 courses in science, 4 courses in English, and 4 courses in social studies. Then there's testing, either having an exempt or a passing score on those 5 or 9 Regents exams. And then understanding that we are still trying to hold students to that rigor which colleges and careers are looking for. They don't want to see seniors that are just taking the bare minimum. So we are still imploring and asking and strongly advocating for students to take a full load, regardless of what the planning might look like for next year. If there's anything that COVID's shown us, it's that we can kind of persevere and get through it. So we say that transcript review is an ongoing process because people are human, and it is possible that there might be a mistake. So whether or not a student took an independent study, or whether or not they have a job and they need to get credit for that on their transcript, it is very important that your son or daughter is involved in this process as much as possible. Again, we met with every junior individually and reviewed this, but we want to make sure that this year's grades and exams and scores, no matter what gets on there, accurately as well. So we work very closely with the registrar's office to make sure things are accurate, because again, we want to make sure that the best picture is going forward regardless of the path that they choose. This leads into NCAA courses. Again, there's the breakdown I mentioned, which goes into NCAA courses. They can be different. We're going to touch on that in a minute. But ultimately, it is understanding that they have their own requirement. They need to make sure that students are registering through the NCAA clearinghouse. So this is the breakdown in another grid form. Again, just the difference between Regents with Advanced Designation and the Regents exam. So the NCAA, so specific electives, lower level math and sciences, not seminar type English classes are typically the ones that NCAA may not approve. But again, it's something that if you're going on to play a D1 or D2 sport, we're going to want to make sure that you are on their website. There's a sliding scale that determines whether or not your GPA and the required SAT or ACT scores. Now, this is kind of up in the air right now with so many schools going test optionals. We don't know what the sliding score may have, how it might be impacted moving forward. But right now, this is the information that we have, is that there's a formula that we can input. And it basically explains exactly what your son or daughter would need to be eligible at the D1 or D2 level. D3 does not have the same restrictions or guidelines. So when I say that it's different than New York State graduation requirements, our first and foremost job is to make sure that they are graduating according to the New York State standards, which closely adheres to the NCAA. But if your son or daughter wants to take that one extremely rare elective and it's a make or break situation between that and playing sports, we have to make sure that, we're kind of juggling that. So now I get to share with you probably the most powerful tool that we have moving forward, which is NAVIANCE. For those of you that have never seen it or that are extremely familiar with it, it's important that we take time to review it because we mentioned it during our junior meetings, but it is something that is going to be constantly utilized and updated for the next year and a half. It is where all of the final information gets sent. It is where all the final information gets tabulated, and it is ultimately a very powerful tool for you, your son and your daughter, and us to use in combination to narrow down the search field or to expand the search field, whether that's college and career exploration or whether that's just personality information. So bear with me. I'm going to share my other screen here, and I am going to thumbs up for my colleagues if they're seeing it. Awesome. So if you log into NAVIANCE using the directions on this green packet that each and every junior received, you can see that across the top band here, there's items like self-discovery, which have your personality profile, there's your career clusters and your intelligence surveys. You can scroll a little bit more to the right, and if you want to specify some different careers. Or if we're getting into colleges, this college tab expands and it talks about everything from the application process, scholarships. It talks about how to do a college search. And then obviously it has this handy dandy kind of task list. The most important part that we are going to always harp on is that students need to go to this About Me tab and they need to update and have an accurate resume. Now, I said this during every one of my meetings. I know that COVID was a resume killer. It's hard to find new and exciting things. What you'll hear later tonight as well is that we're not looking for an entire 3-page resume. We want to see, and colleges want to see, and careers want to see that you've expanded your learning beyond the walls of Brighton High School. So the two things that we've asked every junior to do is to update their resume, even if it's just making sure the format, that there's no font errors, that there's no typographical errors, and update their junior survey. This is so that we can help write, accurate letters of recommendation, and so that we can get an understanding and a pulse on what your son or daughter may be looking into doing. So as I slide back here to the colleges tab, you can see that if we did, for example, an advanced college search, when I extend my session, it would give you 8 different criteria to choose, everything from distance to academics to different majors. And again, this is something that every counselor can talk about basically from memory because we utilize it so often. So while I can't show it to you right now, that's the modern day we live in. Technology has problems and bumps. It is something that you're going to be very familiar with. Let me go back to the slide here. All right. So Again, I can't reiterate that Ms. Stern is available, so if you're nervous about NAVIANCE, it's nothing that's going to track you. It's nothing that's going to, kind of shake its thumb at you if you did it wrong. There's nothing that you can go on there that's going to mess up. It's only going to help us help you with your son or daughter. So again, if they want to take a career search 3 times, great. If they want to take it once, that's okay. But ultimately, everything that we do is gate kept by NAVIANCE. Post-secondary options. And with that, I will hand it on to Miss Carrie Crowley.
Hi, everyone. We are so grateful and so glad that you're here. And again, just to reiterate that tonight might feel like a lot. It's really dense, but we are here and we care so much about you and your students. So we are all in on the help. So next we're going to look at some post-secondary options. I think a lot of times it feels like we're very college heavy at Brighton, and that's because many of our students go there, but we want you to know that we also have students that each year choose to take maybe a gap year, go into the military, vocational training, apprenticeships. And so we want to support you and your family in whatever direction your student decides to go. And taking a look at this just gives the data breakdown for our class of 2020, the percentages of where students have headed and where they are. And just a reminder that in our last junior newsletter, that it was a great highlight of apprenticeship options, gap year, and military options as well. So take a look at that. Those are an incredible resource that Courtney is putting together for us, and I think it's helpful for everybody. And then also just a reminder that if your student is planning on maybe or interested in a field in the construction area, there will be a careers in construction field that comes up this Thursday, and again, information on that and a link as well as in the junior newsletter. If you are thinking, well, we're really not quite sure what we're up to yet, that's also okay. We have so many different methods for you as a family and for your students to explore so many options. Again, like Mr. Figueroa talked about, we have NAVIANCE. That has been really helpful to students. It spits out a lot of ideas that they maybe hadn't thought of, or that it can sort of validate maybe different career options that they thought they might be interested in. We've got wonderful job shadowing opportunities and internships, again, through Mrs. Stern. COVID has limited that a little bit, but we have really high hopes for things opening back up and opportunities opening up to students. Checking in with BHS alum is another great way for students to sort of think about what is out there. A lot of times they might not want to hear it from an adult perspective, so hearing from their peers can be really helpful as well. And then, of course, any type of individual appointments with us so that we can help your children and students utilize any of the different tools that we have. I really love this slide. We used to talk about safety, match, and reach options, and we used to sort of only talk about it in the context of college, but I'm really loving that we are expanding this, this conversation. When we talk about things that are safety, match, and reach, we're really talking about how it coincides and fits in with the plans that your student might have for the future. So when we're talking about college, we're obviously talking numerically. Maybe schools that are looking for slightly above where they're at academically, match is right in the same area, and safety is where your student is performing higher than what the school is looking for. But really, if we take a look at that right-hand column, it's talking about so much more. We're talking about financial decisions that you're making as a family. We're talking about the location, the circumstance and the services that they provide. If you have a student that has been utilizing lots of supports and services here, we want to make sure that they find that wherever they go as well. So I would really encourage you, there's a lot of sort of text and examples on this slide, but just to take a look at that when you're considering your next options. Questbridge is a program that we always want to touch on. This is a program that really is made for students who have significant financial need and are very high academic achievers. This can really be a life-changing experience for students, for sure. Students will have the opportunity to apply to this program. It's incredibly competitive, but we have absolutely had students who have been, gifted and granted the majority of their tuition, if not full rides to very competitive colleges. And it can be a real game changer in their lives. So if you feel that you or your student and your child fall into that category, we would really encourage you to talk to your counselor or to any of us about that program as well. Financial planning. This is a wonderful monster all on its own. We sometimes will get financial aid questions, and this truly is something that we would encourage you to always reach out to either the schools, come to our financial aid night that is happening on October 21st, that is happening in October in 2021, I'm sorry. And this is something that families typically have lots of questions about, and there are just so many different circumstances, and we would never want to steer you in the wrong direction. So we want to make sure that you're working with a professional in that area. One of the things that really all families have found to be very helpful is there's something that is now mandated to be on all colleges' financial aid websites, which is called the net price calculator. That gives an extremely accurate estimate of what your family will be responsible for financially. I believe it requires a few different pieces of information from your taxes and your income in the home, and then it can provide for you a very accurate estimate of what you will actually, again, owe or be responsible for if your student attends that school. So we care about you, we care about your finances. It's a really big part of the college decision process, as we were talking about that safety, match, and reach. That's another part of that conversation. So if we don't have the answers, which we maybe won't, we can certainly point you in the right direction. Awesome. So one of the things to think about, even though financial aid can be a little bit of a mystery, one of the things that we do have a lot of support for are your students looking for scholarships and free money. So there are lots of different ways for students to find scholarships. It can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming. If you just Google scholarships, I bet you'll get about 2 million. So we've got lots of different ways for students to sort of narrow that down a bit. We've got our counseling website, which has lots of local and national ones as well. Going Merry is a website that students are really finding very helpful. They can put in a lot of different criteria, so they're sent specific scholarships to match sort of their preferences and what they're looking for. One of the things that I really like to remind students and families is that sometimes there's a misconception about scholarships, that it's only for the highest ranking students, but oftentimes it can be related to, things that maybe your student is passionate about, the fields that they're going into, maybe something creative that they've done or different volunteer opportunities. So we always recommend for students, don't take for granted the things that you're interested and passionate about. There likely could be a scholarship out there for you. So the next part that we're sort of moving into are factors in admissions. The question that we are always asked is, what are admissions reps really looking at? So we're going to watch an awesome video about this, and then the presentation will be handed over to Ms. Holly Giuliano.
And Jeff Salingo joins us now, first on CBS This Morning. Jeff, thank you for being here. The first thing I want to dispel for people out there is the idea that applying to college is some sort of meritocracy. Your book makes clear it is not.
No, it was never fair, and it never will be fair. Teenagers seem to think that a rejection from their dream college is an indictment on their life. But really, what it really is about is all the agendas that colleges have, all their priorities that they have that come through in admissions. So they may want more full-pay students, more students from the Dakotas. So they have all these priorities that come through in admissions. So just because a college has a 25% acceptance rate doesn't mean you have a 1 in 4 chance of getting in.
Yeah, I love the detail that the typical admissions officer looks at an application for just about 7 minutes. Think of the hours and the agony that go into the application and then a 7-minute review. But how has the process changed from the time when parents might have been applying to school to now their kids applying to school?
Well, their kids now are applying to so many more schools than parents did, 8 or 10. And so what's now happening is that the smartest kids from Buffalo and from Washington and from Seattle are applying to the same set of schools all across the country. And now you throw in kids around the globe applying to those same schools. So a school like Emory University, which is one of the schools that I embedded myself in, just 4 years ago, they had 20,000 applications. The year I was there last year, 30,000 applications. So a rise of 10,000 applications just in 4 years.
Wow. I know a lot of parents and a lot of kids right now are worried about how the pandemic will impact their application. They're not part of clubs they could have been part of. They're not volunteering where they might have volunteered. How will the pandemic affect the application process?
Well, the biggest thing, I think, is the SAT and the ACT. So tomorrow, the SATs was supposed to be given to 300,000 teenagers, and half of them have already been canceled. So what we're seeing, as you mentioned in the introduction, we have 400 plus colleges that have gone test optional this year, which means they're not using test scores. You don't have to submit them. But yet we still see students out there, seniors, trying to get a test score, because in the ambiguity of admissions, we think that number really matters. And what I found in the year I was embedded in these 3 admissions offices is that high school grades and high school courses matter a lot more than that test score.
Yeah, and the grades matter throughout the senior year. So even if you're in, you've got to continue to do well because, or even if you're on the bubble, you got to continue to do well because those schools are still checking, believe it or not. Jeff, with this inside look into the process, I'm curious, what would you change? How can these schools do a better job?
Well, one of the things I think they should stop doing is trying to recruit all these students who don't have a chance. In the book, I talk all about the direct marketing. And if you have a teenager who's been going to college, they probably get overwhelmed with mail in their mailbox and email. And those are from schools that are just trying to increase their application numbers. They have no desire in some cases to actually admit you. So one of the things I would change is to try to slow down on that and cut back on that direct marketing, because you're increasing students' anxiety and you're encouraging them to apply when they have no chance.
Boy, Jeff, I wish your book would have been around when I was applying, because you can just beat yourself up when you don't get into the school that you want. So when you say embedded, what exactly were you doing? Were you watching all the admissions officers look at applications so you could see their thought process? I'm fascinated by what you did.
Yeah, it was totally open process. I was allowed to be there whenever I wanted to be. I can look at any application, and I was reading applications with them. The only thing I couldn't do is identify them by name, but I could identify all the other details, which I have in the book. And so I would sit there and I would read and listen to the conversations they were having about individual students. I was there during what they call committee, where they meet around a big table and they're voting up or down in just a couple of minutes, whether to accept somebody or to reject somebody.
You got to hope that they're in a good mood, that their tummies are full and they've had a good night's sleep. So if we want to get into college, what's the best thing we need to do?
Control what you can control. And so focus on your high school courses you're going to take and the grades. Don't worry about what happens in that admissions office, because so much of that is out of your control. Yeah. Do the best you can do, participate in activities, and then let the chips fall where they may.
And read this new book by Jeff Salingo, because honestly, the scenes in the book are amazing. You actually see admissions officers moving kids from admit to not admit and then back. And you're like, oh my God.
Oh man. Yeah.
It's amazing, Jeff. Congratulations, and thank you for joining us. And the book again is Who Gets In and Why. It is on sale now. You'll want to pick it up.
All right. Well, while we are getting back to the slideshow here, I'm going to kind of jump in with what colleges are actually looking for. And just to reiterate that interview, I think the most important takeaway for me on
this
that
new metal roofing product that's going viral. And right now,
There we go. It's going viral. Control what you can control. How about that? So this grid here is a survey that's done about every 3 years from NACAC, which is the National Association of College Admissions. And if you take a look at the top 5 items there, those have been the same for as long as I've been doing this. Those have been the same. And if you look at the top 3, and this is essentially what colleges are saying, these are the most important things that they are looking at when they are reviewing candidates for admission. The top 3 is your transcript. That's what they're looking at. And then, you know, I think what's important to share is transcripts all across the country are going to be a little wonky next year. The seniors that just applied, some of them have incompletes. They might have withdraws on transcripts. They might have a pass versus a letter grade. That's consistent whether you're coming from Brighton or Bellingham, Washington. It's going to be the same. So colleges are wrapping that and figuring out how they're doing that this year. So for next year's cohort, they're going to be expecting some more of that. I think that the one thing that I really want to highlight here is this student demonstrated interest. This is a factor that used to be, I don't even think it was on this when I started, because the trend over the last decade has been increased in online applications. They're so easy to apply that kids are sometimes sending out 15, 20 applications, and colleges on the other end are not sure if someone's even serious about whether or not they're going to accept an offer. So this demonstrated interest has bumped itself up on this list quite a bit over the last 2 surveys, the last 6 years. And really what this is saying is, how serious are you? How interested in this particular school? Are you opening emails? Yes, some colleges actually track whether or not you're opening emails from their institution. If it's easy for you to get on campus and they have an optional interview, are you taking advantage of that? Those types of things. So really consider that when you're, you know, assessing your school options. I think we can move to the next slide here. SAT and ACT. So yeah, there's obviously some unknowns with this year. The exams themselves are used for admittance to 4-year colleges. So either one or the other is needed for most 4-year colleges. I'm going to get to some of the changes and policies that was referenced in that video. And typically we recommend taking them in the spring of the junior year. We also typically recommend trying one of each. I use the Coke and Pepsi analogy. Try one, try the other. Data from College Board, which administers the SAT, looks at 1/3 students typically do better on the SAT, 1/3 do better on the ACT, and 1/3 show no measurable difference. So it's worthwhile to try them both. You sign up to them through their websites, which are posted in this presentation. It's all over our website as well. This is a brief rundown of the two. Essentially, a little bit more in science, reasoning, and the ACT. So sometimes students who feel that that's a strength area, you know, want to pursue that. Science and social studies is embedded in the SAT, but not as much as on the ACT. And those are the costs of those. On the next slide, test opportunities. So preparing for the test, there's some validity to doing that. There's some data, again, from the College Board that students that do a reasonable amount of preparation can increase their score upwards of 90 to 100 points between the PSAT and the SAT. So we do encourage some type of preparation for that. For some kids who really need that structure, they may not do that independently. You might want to consider looking into some opportunities in the community. We offer something through Brighton Continuing Ed, which is very reasonably priced. It's comfortable for the kids. It's in a familiar kids. We also have resources with Chariot Learning that's locally owned. And then there's bigger agencies that offer tutoring as well. So look into that if that's something that your child feels like would be helpful to them. On the next slide, so again, in that survey, or excuse me, in the interview, they talked about more colleges going what's called test optional. At this point, there's about 1,700 schools that run test optional. And in New York State alone, that's including, Geneseo, Albany, Canisius College, Ithaca, Cornell, Bard, Columbia. These are all test optional right now. And most of those policies have transferred over to everything I just mentioned was 2022 already. So it may not be required that you need to complete the SAT. I feel like we're still sort of encouraging that just because there are a lot of unknowns. So it's probably in your best interest to try and get a test in there if you can. And if kids don't do well on the exam or don't do as well as they had hoped, or they're not reaching the median of what a school is looking for, it's their option whether or not they choose to take that. And send it, Test flexible just means colleges offer the option to submit either an AP or an SAT subject test in lieu of the SAT or ACT. As I already mentioned, some colleges don't require it at all. On the next slide, we are talking about letters of recommendation. So we've advised the kids when we met with them already that they are going to be asking 1 or 2 teachers who they feel they have a relationship with and that those teachers know them well. What we typically recommend is that they're asking 1 teacher from the humanities, so either English or social studies, 1 teacher from math science, to speak to who they are in the classroom. So it does not necessarily have to be a class that they breezed through and got an easy A. This might be the class that they worked their tail off, they stayed after school, they had to work with partners to really boost their understanding of the classroom and managed to pull off a C+. That might really be the letter that demonstrates that they are in it to understand the material. Kids can also ask typically for an other recommender, and that would be someone who might be able to speak to them through a different lens, whether that's an employer, a coach, could be a character reference, but that's an option as well. The kids really need to ask in person. I know it's a tough, and some kids are fully remote, so that may not be an option, but ideally for them to ask in person. And then more formally in the fall, there will be a process that we will walk them through to invite their teachers through NAVIANCE. So for all of you kids that are out there, you are not doing that before we see you in seminar. It's really, really important, because if you make errors with that, it really can mess things up. So control what you can control. That's something you have control over. The college essay. Okay, so this is a really, really, really important piece of the application, and I would argue the most important part of the application. For one, the SAT is moving away from the essay. They used to have an essay that they required, and after this spring, they won't even be requiring it anymore. So colleges really rely on this to get a sense of who you are, a little voice, a little bit more to the application. And for some kids, they really can shine here. The essay is a process. You are not sitting down and cranking this out in 2 hours and you have an essay ready to go. Like any good writing, it's going to take revision, it's going to take feedback. You kind of have to sleep on it and come back to it. We really encourage kids to try and get the essay done over the summer. So when they come back in the fall, they can focus on the most important part of their application, which is their transcript, right? So we really want them to get some of this stuff done out of the way over the summer, ideally. They can read the prompts through the Common App. They're already out there. They can have either a counselor or a teacher review them. Parents, you guys are wonderful reviewers. We love you as reviewers, and you may even be a professor in English at a college, but we also like to see them just to make sure that they are, kind of targeting what colleges are looking for. And if they have questions, they can always come see us as well. I guess, the last piece to think about is when you guys are making your plans for what you want to do after high school. This is your journey. It's a match for you to make. It's not about winning a prize. There's no golden ticket at the end of this. So, embrace yourself with this, immerse yourself, ask for help. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Courtney Stern, who's going to talk about our spring and summer timeline. The 7th inning stretch, everyone.
Woo-hoo! Guys, we are almost there. I am the second to last person to speak tonight, so hang in there. So what we're going to talk about are a few things that we can get started to do now as a junior. I think the first thing, which is not on this sheet, is going to be reading the weekly junior newsletter. Every week we are trying to cover a different topic, a different to-do, advertise those SAT, ACT prep classes, different career exploration opportunities. So please, it should take you 5 minutes to skim through it and read the stuff that pertains to you. So take a couple minutes. I try and get them out on Thursdays, every Thursday of the week. So make sure that you are paying attention to those newsletters. They are going to cover everything that we've covered tonight and more as we move through the rest of this school year. So something to look forward to this spring, and this will probably come out in May, are pink sheets. So pink sheets are not, I repeat, they are not a request for a letter of recommendation. This is you helping us. What we will do is ask you, the students, to send a pink sheet, and they used to be pink and paper copies. Now they are an electronic, so we're going to keep it calling the pink sheet. You're going to send that to 3 different people. You can send it to more if you'd like, or less, but really ideally we'd like 3 different perspectives on you. So maybe a couple teachers, a club advisor, a coach, an employer, someone that can tell us about who you are in different areas, so that when we write our letters of recommendation for you, which the counselor letter of recommendation, yes, we write one for all of you, kind of covers the whole person. Your teachers are going to talk about you in the classroom. Your club advisors are going to talk about you in the club. We are going to talk about you as the whole person, and how do you fit into this community, and how will you add to the job, the employer, the college campus, wherever it is that you end up going. So look for this link in May, send it out to a couple different people, and we will use that over the summer to write your letters of recommendation. The other thing that parents, we would love to get back from you is the parent brag sheet. You guys know your children the best. You have the best feedback, and it is invaluable to us when we are going to write our letters of recommendation. I learned so much about my students sometimes that I might not never know had it not been for you guys filling this out. So it is and has been included in the junior newsletter every week for the last couple of weeks. So please take a look at that. Take a few minutes to just share a little bit about your child, so that we can get a better sense of who they are. So a couple tips for this spring and summer. Really my colleagues kind of covered all of this stuff, but do your research. Start compiling a list of the post-secondary options. This is the biggest part of the journey, is trying to figure out where you want to go and what you want to do. And we are here to help you. Once you make those decisions, we can walk you through pretty quickly any application process, whether that's job or colleges or, speaking with recruiters. This is the time that really is the most time-consuming piece of this puzzle. So, as everybody said, please come see me during office hours. I'm here to help all of you from 11 to 3 every Tuesday, Thursday. If students don't, want to schedule individualized appointments with me, I am here to help that as well as all of my other wonderful counselors would love to meet with your children too. And then just, yeah.
I'm sorry, can you just mention the Brighton Continuing Ed for the essay? Because I don't think I did.
Yes. So Brighton Continuing Education over the summer will be offering a essay writing course. So over the course of 5 days, they're half days, your child will spend time with one of our lovely English department teachers, and at the end of that week they will have a hopefully almost final or final draft of their college essay done. That has been going on for the last 5-6 years, for a good amount of time, but it is unbelievably helpful because, from the experience of working on applications, especially, many of our students use the Common application when applying to colleges. The essay is the biggest part of the application. The rest of the application is demographic information: name, address, phone number, where did you go to high school, what did your parents do for a living, and a little bit of your resume. It's all things that you can just kind of regurgitate pretty quickly, but that essay is that biggest piece of showing who you are. So that Brighton Continuing Ed class is a really great opportunity. So until that summertime, continue to visit, continue to research. If you can get on campus or meet with people in person, when that opens up, I think there's so much to be said about those gut feelings of how you really feel when you get somewhere. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to call admissions offices. That's like one of the number one things that when I talk to students about it, well, I can never call. What would they think of me if I ask a question? That is their job. And they keep reminding me they're in the job of admissions, not denial. They want to talk with your child. I think that's a big piece. It's time to let the kids take the reins and have them call the offices, have them send emails. That's how the college knows that you, the student, or your child is interested in their programs. And again, the goal is you come back this fall with your options narrowed down. So whether it's a final list of these are the 8 schools I want to apply to, or I'm thinking about going to college, here are some ideas, or maybe I want, I've spoken with some military recruiters, this is the path I want to go on. Once you know that path, we are going to jump in pretty quickly come September into the planning process of applying and moving forward. So we are here to help. Keep us updated on all of that. Senior timeline, I am not really going to get into this. This is more for your information of what to look forward to this fall. So couple just highlights of that is attending seminar. We are going to go through all of the nuts and bolts of the application process. So whether that's applying to jobs, colleges, again, enlisting in the military, we are going to walk you through the steps of that. So make sure that you are at every seminar. College rep visits will be back in action, hopefully maybe in person again, but if not virtually like we did this fall. Great opportunity to speak with people in the profession. We will continue to have office hours in the fall. So this fall, I also held office hours Tuesdays and Thursdays for seniors. We're hoping to continue that in some capacity in school and potentially after school as well. So look out for those. And, like Carrie said, financial aid night will be coming up, and then we will walk you through the rest of the steps for senior year. One of my highlights of the fall of senior year is instant decision days. So we are so lucky to partner with many area colleges. They will, we set up these 15 to 20 minute interviews for our students to meet directly with their admissions counselor at these institutions. So sometimes, what you would do is submit the application to the college. You'd be able to have, as a student, you'd be able to have a conversation with that admissions rep, talk about, things about the school, reasons you want to go there. And for most of the time, students walk away with an acceptance in their hand. It is an unbelievably amazing feeling that I see the kids walk away with. They leave excited. It's a wonderful opportunity to get to know a college on a personal level. You get to know a little bit more about what the experience would be, instead of just kind of getting this acceptance letter. Sometimes in some schools will also include some merit scholarships that a student may be eligible. So not only are they walking out with an acceptance, but they can also walk away with some potential money in their pockets if they choose to go there. I had a student a couple years ago who was interested in becoming a social worker. She had thought about one college forever and thought that was the only place she could ever go. And I said, hey, why don't you think about, this other school? They're doing an instant decision day. Just apply, see what they have to say. Let's, have more places to compare to. And it totally changed her trajectory just based on that communication and that relationship that she built. And she ended up going to that new school and found it was a better fit. So you just never never know what's going to happen from these. So I would highly encourage you to think about signing up, especially if you are interested in any of the schools listed on the screen. If you can take away one thing from tonight's presentation, I would really hope that this is it. We ask that students apply, whether it is for a scholarship, again, job, anything where college, anything where we have to send official documents, such as a transcript or letter of recommendation. We need at least 10 school days to process our applications to ensure that it gets out to the college by their deadline. So the typical, regular decision deadline for college is January 1st. And this year, in order to get them out before just 20 or 10 school days before break, we needed students to apply to those colleges by December 7th. We ask that your students apply to the college so that we are not sending transcripts and SATs and ACTs and essays, letters of rec to schools that your student would not end up applying to. We process over 1,500 applications before the December break, and many come in afterwards. So usually by the end of the year, we're edging up towards 2,000 applications. While this is a big part of our fall semester, it is not the only part of our job. So we really need those 10 school days to be able to process everything effectively. We've been doing this for I don't even know how long, because well before I've been here, and I think I've been here 9 years or so. So it is a tried and true process. It works. Other schools in the area require 15 to 20 school days. So we're kind of on the lower end. So we really appreciate you working with us and following these guidelines so we can get everything out the door and on time for you guys. So that means, we love and would love for you, encourage you to work on all of this stuff, this planning and getting ahead as much as possible. But we are not ready to submit official documents over the summer. Yes, Common App, actually, as a junior right now, you could create a Common App account and you can log in and you can start filling out that demographic information. You can look at the essay prompts if you wanted to. You could get a majority of that stuff done, but we will not be ready to submit everything till after seminar is over. We have a lot of things going on in the summer. We are not working every day over the summer. Your senior transcript is not finalized until usually early September. For each application, we send a BHS school profile, which is actually on our counseling website if you ever wanted to look at it, but it gives colleges a snapshot of our school so they can kind of compare you within the school community. That is not completed until September or October, depending on when we get some data from the state. So please hold off on submitting anything. And, we promise you are not at a disadvantage. And if you do have any questions or earlier deadlines that you're worried about, please reach out to us at any time and we can work you through the process. So again, for college applications, this means yes, get ahead, work on things, but we would just love for you to hold off on stuff until we begin seminars so we can ensure everything is done correctly and we get things out on time. And from here, I will hand it off to Julie Bianchi to finish us off.
Thanks, Mrs. Stern. As Courtney just said, I am the last presenter tonight. We are almost done. So as Mrs. Vigiani said in the beginning of the presentation, we are here for you and your students through this entire process. This was a ton of information to process. This will be available on our website in the next few days, so you can go back and rewatch it. But please stay in touch with us. Our Calendlies are on the next slide, so you can schedule appointments. If you're a little more old-fashioned like me, you can also email us or call us on our work phones. And we also have wonderful secretaries in the counseling center who, if students or parents want to come in and schedule with them, that's another great way to do it. So at this time, I'm gonna say, like, wrap up the most important things for you guys to take away tonight. Remember to finish your resume and junior survey in NAVIANCE. Look for the pink sheets in May. Ms. Stern did a great job explaining those pink sheets. And attend our senior parent nights in September and October. And don't forget about Ms. Stern's office hours. That's a great way for kids to stop in and hear about all things college. She also talks about internships and career options. So keep that in mind too.
Well, you have been an incredible crowd. I think it's extra special because I know so many of you. I can't believe that I'm actually in this position with a junior in high school. So it's great to be in your company tonight and to present with this amazing team. And Dr. Hall, we're grateful that you took the time to be here with us. It's always comforting. So thank you all, and if you have anything you need, reach out, let us know. We're here for you.
This has been a special presentation from Brighton High School.